I remember being a young boy at a baseball game, shouting at the opposing team. And the thing that made me shout way, way, way louder is when that opposing player acknowledged that he could hear me. It's like, oh my God, it's unbelievably motivating and exciting and intoxicating to suddenly realize that, like, oh shit, this person can hear me.
Venmo. For most people, it's an app where you pay a friend back for coffee. A modern way to split a check. A fintech app like any other. But it's much more for the artist Max Geller.
I was in LA for the weekend, and it was the premiere weekend of a movie called Live by Night, which Ben Affleck not only starred in, but he also directed. And I say this as someone who loves Ben Affleck and defends Ben Affleck and challenges popular perceptions about Ben Affleck. This movie sucked, and I couldn't believe how bad it was. And I remember like taking the escalator out of the movie theater, and I looked on Venmo for Ben Affleck, found him, and charged him the price of the movie ticket I had just spent, $15. But by the time we got back to the place we were staying, I had not only received a notification from Venmo that Ben Affleck had declined my request, but a request from Ben Affleck saying, and I quote, because I can remember this, it's seared into my memory. Did you actually see it, or do you live in a garbage city where it comes out next week? And he was right. Live by Night had only premiered that weekend in LA and New York. But I happened to be in LA and I had seen it. But like, it's just so stupefying, right? Because that's definitely something that Ben Affleck would say. You can almost hear him saying it. Did you actually see it? Or do you live in a garbage country where it comes out next week? You know, I felt just like an 11-year-old boy booing from the bleachers and having, he could hear me.
Max Geller isn't the only one to use the app in his own way. Other users turn to Venmo to contribute to political causes, to connect to their community, and to be patrons of the arts.
I've Venmo'd Ryan Phillippe $5 for Bud Lights, more so just as a personal joke, because I'm like, I don't know him, he doesn't know me, but he got that $5, sent him for Bud Lights, and had to be very confused. The idea that it's like, if that person was in front of me, and I've enjoyed their music, their movies, their writing, whatever, I would love to buy that person a drink. So I use it as a small, like, hey, you brought me joy in my life. I'd like to buy you a drink, usually in the form of Bud Lights.
I believe that there is still some magic left in the world. And this is, in its own tiny way, a vessel for it. Because otherwise, it would be impossible to get back at these people who provide you with the irksome little downers in your life that piss you off. Like, how many times has someone left a copy of Eat, Pray, Love at your house without your permission? I mean, it happened to me at least 4 times. So then I got to Venmo Elizabeth Gilbert for a garbage removal fee. And then I felt better about everything. You know, like I was lighter on my feet. Because she said no. Not because she ignored me, because she said no. It's like, I can hear you. She acknowledges you.
Lana Swartz, a media studies professor, considers accessibility to personal information on the platform in her work.
Venmo has this kind of tension in it where it's simultaneously the most boring thing in the world and the most interesting thing in the world. And unlike other forms of social media, it's very unlikely that someone has an intern running their Venmo account the way they may for their Twitter account or Facebook account. And there is a pleasure to what people sometimes casually call Venmo stalking. That we imagine that Venmo is one of the more authentic places left in our social lives.
And this is what makes it so easy to get the attention of people who otherwise may be hard to reach.
Most recently, I found Governor Cuomo's daughter, who seems to be a somewhat active Venmo user. And I really wanted to get her opinion about whether or not her papa should resign for rampant misogyny. So I asked her to either pay me $1 or deny this request, and I will take that to mean you don't think he should resign. Which I think I got my answer when she refused me.
Venmo is public by default. On it, we can map networks of power, patterns of behavior, and social discourse, from the everyday to acts of vice. This ultimately serves a specific purpose.
These platforms only exist because someone imagines that the data they produce will one day be valuable for something.
It's very much a quintessentially American app. Capitalism is so front and center in this app.
Transactional data is considered one of the most valuable forms of personal data imaginable. It is yet another data set that can be put in conversation with other data sets to craft targeted messages of all kinds, whether political messages, advertising messages. It can also be used to profile and surveil people for any number of other purposes, whether law enforcement, health insurance, employment.
It reminds me of like the original initial tension that I feel with any social media or any sort of app on my phone, which is like, why would I turn myself into data that this company can profit from?
Venmo is like very much a fun vessel with which to interact with the world. It's all I can do to calmly finish reading the day's news is to know that by the end of this, I'm going to find the shit out of at least 3 of these villains. It's a way of feeling less lonely for me, but in many different ways. Sometimes you see what all your friends are doing, and then sometimes you go after the people who are annoying you, and it feels good. It makes me feel less anxious about everything, knowing that I can reach these people, that these people aren't that far away from me, that we're all using the same phones and technology. That's empowering.